All right, hey, hello everybody. Welcome to Comic Book Radio. Thank you for being here. I'm your host, Peter Cimetti. This is episode 211. We were supposed to have this show yesterday. That's my fault. Got a bunch of things I had to get done yesterday. It's the time of year. It is. You know, sometimes you gotta just get to work on other things that require your attention immediately. And there's no time for things like Open Lines Friday. So that's why we're doing Open Line Saturday. That's today. Saturday, May 25th. So we're going to be talking about Wizard Magazine and animated shows. I know. They don't really have much to do with each other. Now, this isn't going to be like a deep dive into Wizard Magazine. This isn't going to be like a behind the scenes, the dirt of Wizard Magazine. There's nothing like that. This is just going to be like an appreciation stream, you know, remembering Wizard Magazine. If you didn't like it, we can remember that too. You know, why didn't you like it? But I really enjoyed it when I was growing up reading comics. It really helped a lot. Helped me to get more familiar with a bunch of different comics, especially independent comics and a lot of creators as well. So I miss it, you know. I miss the kind of the feel of the magazine. I know that there's websites and there's YouTube and there's everything nowadays. It's not the same though. It's just not the same. Maybe I'm alone in that. I don't think I am. So I got a couple issues of Wizard Magazine here. I used to have a lot more. Sold them all years ago. Ones that I'm not going to be showing tonight because they're in the storage unit are the X-Men 30th anniversary book and then the Dark book, which was a bunch of villains featured in that. Little me, you know, as a kid, traded a couple lunches for those. But these I still have because they're, I guess, sentimental of one reason or the other, or, you know, got them as a gift, that kind of a thing when I was a kid. But I used to have like 1 through 30. I sold all those, and then I had a bunch scattered throughout 31 to 100. And then here and there, you know, little pieces here and there between that to when they closed down. I think they closed down around, I want to say like 2010, 2011, something like that. Which is interesting because if we do, and maybe we will eventually do like a deeper dive into Wizard Magazine. This is not, like I said, it's not going to be that tonight. But I bet there's a correlation with Wizard Magazine shutting down and comics maybe not doing so hot. Maybe. Anyway, that's a show maybe for another day. And as far as animated shows go, I've got a bunch of things. You can't see them right now, but I got a bunch of things to the side. Bunch of different DVDs that I own, shows that I tend to watch, rewatch, and whatnot. Just have it on the background as I'm doing work, whatever it may be. And then we can talk about a whole host of things in terms of that topic. So you guys are more than free to join. If you want to join on the show tonight and you want to get in on the conversation, I'm going to put the link here in the chat, just in case it's not pinned to the top of the chat. Sometimes that disappears. So you guys can join if you do want to talk about that. Again, Wizard Magazine and animated shows tonight. If you got something else on your mind, we can talk about that too. But that's kind of what I want to focus on personally. That's what's on my mind, is those two topics. So before I get started, we got Spicer McLeroy here. What's up, Spicer? Let's see what Spicer got to say. Spicer says, "Hey, Warriors, hope you're all doing well. Have a great 3-day weekend." Have a great show, Brother Pete. Yeah, 3-day weekend. Memorial Day on Monday. Yeah. Man, I lose track of things like that. It's just like day in, day out, you know. And then yesterday, I'm at the post office, and they're like, "Have a good long weekend." I'm like, "What?" They're like, "Yeah, Monday. We're closed Monday." Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. Oddly enough, whenever that happens, and it's like, "Oh, the post office is closed," give me an extra day to work. That's how me and my wife see it every time. We're like, "Oh, it's a day off." It's kind of more like, no, it's a day where I can use the extra time instead of rushing to make the post office. I could use that to get more work done. Anybody else ever do that? Or am I alone in that? I don't know. That's how I see it. But I will enjoy it. It'll be nice. What Geeks Do Network says, hey everyone, excited for the show. What's up, man? Yeah, again, if you want to pop in and talk about this stuff with me, feel free. TJ Rex says, hey, I hope everyone's Saturday is going great. I hope that too. Thank you, TJ, for being here. We got Ben Spar here too. What's up, Ben? Hope you're doing good. Thank you for being here tonight. Cole King is here too. Says, glad to have some comic book radio to kick off the long weekend. Anybody doing something special this weekend? Something in particular? Something you're looking forward to doing? You want to share? Let me know. Arthur Helmet is here. Says, hi, Pete. Hello, everyone. What's up, Arthur? Hope you're doing good. Man, Arthur, I am so looking forward to getting the Granite Beast figures. I'm going to have those back soon. Arthur is the 3D sculptor of the Behemoth figure and the Granite Beast figure. And I should have the Granite Beast figure soon-ish. Maybe 2 weeks, I'd say. The last I heard from Mike. Arthur does not print them up. Mike Smith. Ronan, I think Ronan draws. His name changes all the time. He's in here a bunch. He's working on them. He's got a bunch of them done, and he'll get the rest of them done soon. And we got a lot of fulfillment. A lot of fulfillment coming our way soon. All the books are at the printer. Everything is here. King Cryptid books are getting worked on. Those are in production still. But the alternative books are getting printed up. I'm going to have physical proofs soon. I already approved the digital proofs like a week and a half ago. And the Hall of Fame books, those proofs were approved, and those are printing up. So I'll probably have those in like 2-ish to 3-ish weeks. So a lot of things getting fulfilled this summer. It's going to be a summer of Alterna. And then, of course, the King Cryptid campaign will get fulfilled around August-ish. You know, July-ish, August-ish. You know, those months are they're not on your calendar. On my month, it's like May-ish, June-ish, July-ish. Anybody else got those on? It was just me. Maybe that's my calendar. It's weird. So, yeah. So we got a lot of things going on this summer. A lot of stuff getting out to you guys. We got Don B here. What's up, Don? Hope you're doing good. Cole says, plan to just chill at home with the family. Hopefully read some comics if I have time. Hey, that sounds great. That sounds great. All right. So, Wizard Magazine. Let's talk about that first. Because I think we can kind of maybe get that out of the way in 20 or so minutes. I don't have a ton of magazines to show you. I'm just going to show you some of the ones I still have. Like I said, 2 of the ones are in storage, so I don't have them to show. But they're not technically Wizard magazines. Wizard put them out. But they're more like specials. So, let's see here. So I got number 50. I thought this was number 100 the other day. That's how long, as a kid, I thought Wizard was out for. Was that by the time this came out, it was number 100. This is number 50. You can see it. It's basically like the number 1 was. You know, the McFarlane Spidey in the Wizard outfit. But jazzed up, you know. This was a great issue. It goes over a bunch of... Let me see. A bunch of like the covers and whatnot. Yeah, you can see that's the... There's all the covers and a bunch of little summaries for all the issues up until that point. Yeah, this is a fun issue. I read that one a lot when I was a kid. Just take it to school, you know. And I remember silent reading. Anybody had silent reading when they were a kid in school? And I just opened that up and I was reading through that. You get like 5 minutes or something. Here's this one with Billy Tucci's She on there. In this issue, it talks about like a She manga being made. You know, look at that. Billy Tucci's She going manga this summer. This issue 59 with the Joe Quesada Superman on it. Yeah, I got this one as a, this was a gift. This was a gift. And it's interesting because there's a couple things in here, like they're talking about the debut, and this kind of ties into the subject matter tonight. The debut or upcoming debut of Superman the Animated Series. Time was. You know, and look at that too, right? This is what they debuted back in the day. That looks like Superman. And I know it sounds weird for me to say it like that. Being like, oh, it's a Superman animated series. And hey, look, it looks like Superman. Nowadays, it's like it's over-designed. I can't get into the S. The S is really funky on a lot of the Superman stuff. Not just the animated shows. It's looking more and more alien. And I get it, you know, the whole, like, it's his alien, it's his symbol, it's a hope, and yada yada. But it's an S, right? The design is great. You know, the design already is great. And it took him a while to get there. You know, it's different than the Max Fleischer Superman S and the Golden Age Superman S and things like that. But that's a great logo. Anyway. Yeah, the Wizard magazine I talked about the other day. So I wanted to clarify on this. We talked about comic book movies and whatnot the other day. I was wondering after the show why they didn't mention so many. And stupid me, I should have read why. They explain it. They preface the whole list, talking about the ones they mentioned and why. They didn't mention others. So there's a whole bunch. We were like, you know, where's Phantom, Shadow, Flash Gordon? You could go on and on. There's a bunch that were not comic book related, but maybe comic strip related. So they actually went through, and on that section there, mentioned that. So they said to determine our rankings, a concrete set of criteria was needed. First, we limited our list to movies that were theatrical releases, or at least intended as such, and were based on characters that appeared in comics first, which meant no Star Wars, The Shadow, or Kevin Smith flicks. Which is interesting. Though they said that we made one exception to the rule. Films based on Robert E. Howard's Conan. Since Conan is recognized by so many comic fans due to the long-running Marvel series. And again, keep in mind this issue is from 2003 that I'm reading this from. And then it says, second, the movies had to be based on comic books and not strips. That meant no The Phantom, Dennis the Menace, Annie. Third, we left out films based on kiddie comics. That meant no Josie and the Pussycats, Casper, or Richie Rich, etc., etc. So it's a whole bunch of reasons as to why. And there's still a couple of things on the list, though, that didn't necessarily still fit the criteria. But it's 2003, right? That was 21 years ago, so we can forgive them. Now, here's one that I have for sentimental reasons purely. And I hated that Wizard did this, right? So Wizard used to be comic book sized. You know? And then they started going into like magazine size. You see the one behind it, it's bigger. I think that was the beginning of the end when Wizard started doing that. Just didn't feel right anymore. So I have this one for sentimental reasons. and also the other cover of it. Still in the bag, apparently, because Alterna Comics is mentioned in here. Now, this issue is, let me see. This is from 2007, April, number 186. And there's a bunch of indie comics mentioned in the background. Well, in the background. In the back of the book. And let's see if I can find the ones here. Yeah, because it was this. A special Wizard Edge supplement, 40 things you need to know about indie comics in 2007. Yeah, we've been around for 18 years, so that was our second year. That was kind of cool to get in Wizard. It was fun. But it's for a book that probably no one here has even heard of. Because we only put it out. We had one graphic novel of it and maybe 3 issues. Print on demand. We were really young at that point in time. So I'm not blaming Wizard on any of that. If anything, I really love the fact that they actually did give us a little write-up. But here we were, number 39, Morbid Myths. Now, none of the pictures over here are of Morbid Myths. But we got a little write-up. They liked it. So that was fun. You know, and I kept those issues. I don't think the magazine was around for very long after that. A couple of years, and then that was it. But I really loved Wizard. I miss it. I thought it was great. It was a lot of fun. Every issue was snarky, you know? Fun and snarky. Which is such a difference in how things are today. There was kind of an irreverent tone, but it felt like a bunch of comic fans giving each other the business in the form of a comic. Wasn't politically correct. The magazine was not politically... I mean, heck, in the back of that 2003 issue is an interview with Joe Quesada. This is how not politically correct this was at the time. Now, Joe Quesada was editor-in-chief. This is 2003. He was editor-in-chief of Marvel at the time. So that question where you see half-naked hot chicks, right? You see that in bold? This is what this is how that's playing out in this. So Wizard asks, as Marvel's current editor-in-chief, Wizard chose you as the last hot seat interview ever. Quesada goes, really? Is this that interview where you have all those pointers everywhere? I like those. And again, it's just a fun interview. Lighthearted. And Wizard goes, this is it. And he goes, cool, can my pointers all go to half-naked hot chicks? And Wizard responds, not all of them. And he goes, how about one to Eliza Dushku? Times were different, I suppose. Some people, I guess, have forgotten. Another one goes, in 20 words or less, juxtapose Marvel pre-Quesada, and Marvel today. And Quesada goes, did you just say juxtapose? And Wizard goes, yep. He goes, okay. Pre-Quesada Marvel's seriously lacking hot, half-naked girls. Today, we're flush with them. 2003. An interview in the biggest magazine in comics. The tone is completely different than anything getting pushed around today. It's funny. It's funny. It's all tongue-in-cheek. It's all in good fun. Where'd the sense of humor go? Very interesting. All right, let's see here. So we got a couple questions or comments, I guess, even in the chat. What's up, American Discord? Says Ogtemberish. Oh, okay, so you have the same calendar I have. But yours seems to be a little more advanced, Shelby. Carbon Dioxide says, damn, house cleaning made me miss your live from Phoenix Comic-Con stream, Shelby. Look at that. So, hope you had a good show, Shelby. Paul says, Wizard Magazine was great for the hobby. Got me into cross-gen during my second age of comics. Carbon Dioxide says, the Head was a good animation show. Says, Wizard / Hero Illustrated. Hero Illustrated was pretty good, too. I had a couple issues of those as well. Also sold them a long while ago. Rick Saylor, what's up, Rick? Hope you're doing good. Thank you for being here. Says, I still buy up all the old Wizard mags. Yeah, looking through them, it made me, want to do that too. And I was like, I'm selling my stuff. I got too much stuff. I got to sell it. I was like, don't go back and do that again. But, I'm keeping the ones I have. Like I said, these were either something sentimental about it, given as a gift by somebody, or just reminds me of, having a lot of fun reading a particular issue when I was a kid. What Geeksu says, that's what made it good. Yeah, that tone made it fun. Now there's sometimes there's a snarky tone to things, but it's always directed at a target audience trying to castigate them. So the irreverent snarky tone is there, but it's not among the characters or the creators, Wizard, it was always it had that fun vibe where you felt like they could kind of, again, give the business to the creators and the companies, have fun with it, put a blurb in there, a little word balloon, and make it like a creator was saying something. Like in one of these issues, let me see, I think it's sorry, I think I just hit the mic. I think it's this issue. There's a contest to hang out with Todd McFarlane. Oh, and then these were great too. These were also very politically incorrect. Crash Course by Capullo. Time was. Several of those would probably get him under hot water today. Let's see. So here's a thing with Todd McFarlane. This is from Wizard 50. Just with a bunch of toys and shirts and whatnot. And then also kind of showing his home life. It's hilarious to think about this because he's got his little kids in the pictures. And they got to be like adults by now. This is from 1995. But they have something in here that's like a contest to hang out with him. I don't know if I'm going to even find the thing, but he's got a word balloon of him saying, I'm going to work you like a dog. Here it is. All right. So there's McFarlane. The Hanging with Todd McFarlane contest. I wonder who won that. And he's like, I'm going to work you like a friggin' dog. That's my best Todd McFarlane. Again, time was. Levi says they openly joked about an Amsterdam room at their house party. Casada? Is that what you're talking about? Rick Saylor says, good old days. Sinopus says, Wizard was awesome. Paul says, 4 years later, Joe decided to stab Spider-Man right in the heart with one more day. Yeah, I know. It's crazy. It's like looking into another universe, checking out these magazines. And I don't even have a lot of them. I don't even have a lot of them. But at this point, I did. But it's crazy. It makes you feel like you're friggin' nuts. Because everything is so upside down now. And then you look at those and you're like, all right, what universe was this? And what universe is this? Because the stuff that's in these magazines, is so lighthearted, is so, just poking fun, having fun, a nice irreverence, while also having a large amount of respect. Like, they pull off this very strange tone that I think resonated with so many people, where it was like this irreverence that was there because there was respect. And you only really found that in, like, sports. Like, when I grew up playing sports, the more you liked a guy, the more crap you gave him. So it was always like you knew where you stood with people because, they'd be giving you crap. And then you give them crap, and then they laugh, and they give you crap back, and everybody gives each other crap. Everyone's giving each other the business. But there was a respect there along with that. And Wizard had that tone for comics. And it kind of brought that camaraderie. Now, oh man, I don't think you could put that out without someone flipping the frick out, getting crazy about it. And it's very, very innocent level humor. I mean, we were all kids for the most part, kids and teenagers reading Wizard magazine. It's strange. Sinopa says, I like when we see some of the modern blogs actually put out interviews that are more fun, like a Wizard article. Wish there were more having fun. Yeah, totally. Don says, Pete's like a young Todd McFarlane in his prime. Okay. All right, that's... The closest thing I'm going to be to Todd McFarlane is maybe pulling off a really bad Todd McFarlane impression. Todd has absolutely accomplished more than I have if we go age to age. But I appreciate it. Maybe one day. Maybe I hope when I'm old to be like a young Todd McFarlane. Golden Tree, what's up, Golden Tree? We got Levi Skeen here. How's it going, Levi? Said their annual party had different names for the rooms. Oh, interesting. Just Kevin says, it's like they don't want to sell comics. We used to tell adventure stories that took themselves seriously. Don says, frequency of fanboy. Levi says, Amsterdam room had a big deck for the smokers. Oh, interesting. What Geeksy says, ball busting. We do it at work. Yeah, most people do. It still happens. That's the craziest part. It's not going to not happen. That still happens all the time everywhere. It's just you don't see it being just accepted as normal, even though it is normal, and in the real world it's accepted as normal. Until you come across someone who's hypersensitive or isn't used to that level of camaraderie and thinks instead that it's bullying. There's a very different thing from that than from bullying. It's a totally different context, a totally different tone. You're trying to elicit negativity in that sense. But like me and the Alterna guys, Tyler, Rob, Wes, Dave, we've all known each other so much and so well at this point. It's fun being able to poke fun at each other. Give each other the business. It's all in good fun and with love. We're just constantly roasting each other. That's great. There's some people that have come along that don't really either get or like that kind of thing. So, that's unfortunate. But I don't know. All right, we got somebody waiting in the back here. I'm going to let them on. They've been very patient. So let's say hello to Sam. What's up, Sam?
Pete, what's up, man?
How's it going?
It's going good. I got on in time to catch the bit about Wizard magazine, and man, that brought back some fun memories of seeing what's to come and little quips from the guys who were just changing the industry at the time. That was pretty cool,
Yeah. I'm gonna have to do an episode or two where I just get the overhead camera going and then just flip through an issue or something.
Yeah,
I'll do
definitely.
It's seriously, it was like a blast from the past, and I was looking through some of the stuff. Crazy.
Yeah. Hey, did you get the image I sent you?
Are you sharing your screen?
I'm not right now. I can go ahead and do that. Hold on a second. Let me because I'm on my laptop at the moment. Give me just a moment, and I will do this way. because we had, and bear with me because this is like under construction. So we have, I don't know if that's going to work so well. Let me do it this way.
Let's see.
Let me do a different source for it so that we can. Sorry about that, guys.
No problem. I mean, it's more than that. That's not a good enough shot. Is it cropping something too much?
Yeah, it's spending more time on the campaign I'm prepping than the image I wanted to share with everybody. You know, because the whole thing about it was, you know, getting to share a little something with folks I think they're going to appreciate. You know. And not so much shilling stuff for stuff that's to come, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Oh, totally.
So we got the fantastic art in for the cover for Tibby and Her Time Traveling Psychedelic Mushrooms issue 2.
Cool.
And so that is what we got here, if that shows up well.
We've got Open Mic Friday coming up on the 31st. Are you going to be there?
Yeah. We're probably going to be live with a couple of different things that we're doing with this cover for like art prints that we're releasing. We getting some holochromes done from the guys from Comics Wellspring.
Okay.
You know, so we're gonna put that out and, you know, give people a chance to get those beauties real quick and get those out before we actually take the comic issue itself onto crowdfund. But yeah, I mean, I just wanted to share some fantastic work by Damian Torres here. I mean, just absolutely freaking gorgeous. He's really been putting in the work on this. He's also, I don't know if you've seen any of his stuff in Red Sonja. He's been doing some fantastic stuff everywhere he touches. So it's been really cool to work with him.
Nice. Was he working on the first issue too?
Yeah, he's the cover artist and interior artist for the series.
Oh, okay.
So, and he's saying he wants to stay on as long as we can make it, and I'm all for that.
Nice.
Yeah. So we do have a colorist for him for the interior. That's Dakota Erhan, who's kind of the directly inspired by Nick Capone. He was one of Nick's students. Absolutely fantastic colorist, and I'm just really happy to hear them. But the covers, I have Damien do those up, and actually I should have the original art page for that in my hands probably this coming week. So really looking forward to taking that all in and probably hang it on my wall for a little while until we offer it up on like the crowdfunding campaign or whatever we're going to do with it. But you know, just something to enjoy, but something that I hadn't shown you yet. Okay, let me stop this, because we got those you know, the Necroholic series we do. We got the proofs in. How gorgeous are these, man? Look at this.
Very nice, man.
Is that not badass?
What issues are those? What number?
This is issue 3. So we're waiting on the actual press run, because I did the proofs, so I could make sure that there wasn't anything I missed in editing. And of all the things, the only thing I missed was a dating error on the copyright declaration. So yeah, I put the wrong year. I had a keystroke error. So
what year did you put? 2025. Oh.
So
I was going to say, if you do a year backwards, it's not too bad, but
yeah, but you know,
he's coming at you from the future.
Coming from the future, man. But yeah, we've been digging that. We were waiting on that press run, and we're going to go ahead and get those out to everybody. And we did a new cover for issue 2, because we've sold out of issue 2, which is a good problem to have. But I don't reprint floppies, so had Brian whip up this little beauty for the new cover for issue 2.
Oh, very cool. Yeah.
Got this old classic pulp kind of feeling to it almost.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get we're doing a pretty sizable press run for that. Let's just put it that way.
Very nice. So when are you launching?
It's done. Well, it's launched. It's funded. We're shipping out to people as soon as the books come in, and then we'll do issue 4 hopefully a little later this year.
Very cool, man.
I'd like to have the book completely finished before we launch. If we can launch in September, so that we can fulfill in October, is what I'd like to see. And then Tibby, we will probably do this coming month, I think, or July. kind of depends on where we're at in production. I want to make sure that we have enough done that we can have a good lead as we jump into the crowdfunding on it.
All right, Sam. So before I let you go,
Yeah, brother.
favorite, well, at least one of your favorite animated shows.
Grimgar, Fantasy and Ash. It's a isekai adventure kind of. The protagonist group is a bunch of everyday normal folks who get whisked away into a fantasy world, but they lose their memories of their original world. So it holds a lot of the kind of like the everyday man kind of hero philosophy for it, but they get there and they kind of suck at being adventurers. Like they have trouble like coordinating with each other. They don't know how to use weapons because they're all modern day kids, and no one's ridiculously overpowered. Spoiler: one of the guys who's trying to keep them all together gets killed at one point, and they all have to deal with that. It's beautifully done with these fantastic watercolor backgrounds and just very, very smoothly animated. They did one season, I think it's 18, 20 episodes, something like that.
Around what year did that come out?
Oh, wow. At least 10 years ago, I think. But,
Okay.
just absolutely fantastic. It's you can find it pretty much on, I want to say it's on Crunchyroll and Hulu, I think. But yeah, Grimgar, Fantasy and Ash. The translation on the title has changed back and forth a few times. But definitely absolutely fantastic. And for current releases, it's got to be Mushoku Tensei.
Oh, okay. All right, man. Mm-hmm. Big anime guy?
I'm big into quality animation, whether it's Korean, Japanese, American animation. There's been a few things that have come out of U.S. animation studios lately that were really, really good, like Vox Machina with the guy, what is that? Titmouse animation out of California.
Oh, okay.
They've done some really great work with the Vox Machina stuff. But that's the real big one that stands out for American animation. There's a little bit of French stuff that's been out with the guys who are making the Miraculous Ladybug show that my daughter absolutely adores. And, of course, some of the Pokemon stuff that she's a huge fan of. So I watch a lot of kids shows with my kids, All
right, man. Well, all the best of luck to you with the kids shows.
Hey,
especially the modern ones.
Yeah, they're my kids have really discerning taste though. So at some point,
have you introduced some of the classic stuff to them? What do they think about that? If you have,
so my son's a teenager, and so he has now discovered the joy of the movie that is Ghost in the Shell, which just kind of blew his mind. His mother is insistent that I not let him watch heavy metal yet, so I'm going to wait until he's 18, and then we're going to go and get some of those great rotoscope scenes. And what else have we shown him? He's a huge fan of the anime that slime isekai thing. That time I got reincarnated as a slime. But then I also introduced him to Faraway Paladin, which is another Japanese product, but it's absolutely gorgeous. And then we also introduced him to the old classic G.I. Joe cartoon from the 80s, which kind of blew his mind a little bit. So fun.
Good. Yeah. Get him hooked on the classic good stuff.
And of course, they both have like the D&D DVD set, so they're like, oh, like we get to go watch the D&D cartoons, and then I get to explain to them once they finish it, why didn't they make more? I said, well, there was this thing called the Satanic Panic, and then we have a discussion on the stupidity of censorship, which my son is really like, that's stupid. I'm like, yeah, and then my daughter's like, adults can be weird. I'm like, yeah, but that's how we are.
They don't know the half of it.
I know. Speaking of weird adults and censorship, watch out for some of the credit card processing nonsense that's going on. I'll send you a link to some examples where some other YouTube commentators are talking about. I'll put it to you in the X DM. I'll send it to you later this week.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of shenanigans going on between people deplatforming their transactions for content they find inappropriate.
The world. All right.
This is the police, right?
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Sam, for stopping by, man.
Always a pleasure, Pete. You guys have a good one.
All right, take it easy. All right, let's see. Carbon Dioxide says, "Hey Arnold" rules. You like Hey Arnold? What about Rocco's Modern Life? I can never get into what was that. Doug. Was it just Doug? I feel like it is. I can never get into that one. All right. Animated shows. So this is not anything close to the entirety of what I enjoy. This is just some stuff I had within arm's reach. A bunch of things are in the other room, and then a bunch of things I just don't own. Some because they just never made and had released DVDs, Blu-rays, whatever. And then others because I just didn't like them enough to own them, but I still liked them. There's a lot of really great stuff on Tubi for free. Go stream that. It's cool. All right. So starting up, this is in no particular order. This is just kind of the order that everything got laid down in. Batman Mask of the Phantasm, and this is a DVD. Some of these, if not all of these, are DVDs, actually, now that I looked. I don't have any of these shows on Blu-ray. This is great. Great. Anybody disagree? If you disagree, if you don't like any of these, feel free to say it too. My feelings won't be hurt. Then this one. This was the last season of the Super Friends show. The Superpowers team. Kind of a darker tone. Way more based on the Jose Luis Garcia Lopez designs. Introduced Cyborg to the show. Voiced by Ernie Hudson of Ghostbusters fame. Ironically, Ernie Hudson had auditioned for the voice of Winston on this show, the real Ghostbusters. But they didn't think his voice fit the character. The very character that he played in the live action movie. So they had Arsenio Hall, who was the first voice, and I think it ran a few seasons for Winston. And that opened him up to do the voice of Cyborg on the Superpowers team. I like some of the Super Friends, like the earlier stuff. And then the season right before this one is pretty good. The tone does start shifting. They introduce Darkseid and things like that. But I really like this season. I mean, I might as well just show Ghostbusters again. So, real Ghostbusters. This set does not contain when it's practically all about Slimer and a bunch of kids. I think it's a couple of seasons like that, and it's not good. I don't like that season. It's like 2 or 3 seasons where it's just Slimer with a bunch of annoying kids. And Slimer's already like he's good in small doses. But once you start, again, this is all my opinion. It's not objective. This is subjective. But to me, once the show started being overtaken by Slimer, I really liked Lorenzo Music as Peter Venkman. I know he sounds just like Garfield. Okay, he voiced Venkman first, but I mean that's just his voice. And I wish they kept him. They didn't want to keep him because then Garfield really took off, and the producers were like, "We don't want the character sounding just like Garfield." So then they get Dave Coulier, Uncle Joey from Full House, who's basically not doing Bill Murray from Ghostbusters. He's doing Bill Murray from like Caddyshack. So he's talking like this the whole time. He's talking like this. It's like, what are you doing, Dave Coulier? And what are you doing, whoever's the voice director? Why? Everybody else was... that there's some really good episodes still with Dave Coulier as the voice of Venkman. I was not a fan of his voice work on that, but there are some episodes that shine through. It's not as grating as the show goes on. I think he starts finding like a decent middle ground. But the dry sarcasm, which Lorenzo Music brought in spades, and I think that's why he was so good with Garfield too. For the Venkman character, it's just not really there with Coulier. He's just like wasn't really digging it. Yeah, he was Rhoda. Yeah, he's on Rhoda. Lorenzo Music. He was on Rhoda as the doorman. Paul says Slimer is a Scrappy Doo of that IP. Wait, that might be a bit harsh. Yeah, Scrappy Doo. Poor Scrappy Doo. I thought Scrappy Doo was entertaining at times, but he's the same way. I love Slimer, but in smaller doses. And they had a good balance of that, or at least a good harmony of that in the first couple of seasons. And then they really went full tilt towards the end of it, where it's like Slimer is the star, And, yeah. Kevin Ryan says, Return to the Planet of the Apes. That show scared me as a kid. Was that animated? I remember the Planet of the Apes show, but I don't remember it being animated. Sinopus says Mask of the Phantasms, really good, yeah. Ben says Tubi's great, lots of good martial arts movies, absolutely, yeah. Star Trek cartoon, yeah, that was good. Arthur says Ren and Stimpy. Carbon Dioxide says Doug was depressing and Doug was depressing and high anxiety. Maybe that's why I couldn't get into it. I tried every now and then. I'm just like, oh. I feel like there's a lot of cartoons now that give me the same feeling I had when watching Doug. It's kind of depressing and high anxiety. It's weird. Can't exactly pinpoint it. Some of it's the voice work. Some of it's the characterization. Yeah, maybe I can't exactly pinpoint it then. The plots. It's just stuff that makes you go, why am I watching this? Let's see. What Geeks Who says, not a big anime guy, but I loved Samurai Champloo so much. Have you? Yeah, I actually, that's in the storage. I got that in the storage, the complete series of that, and also Trigun. Really liked Trigun. What else? Inuyasha. I enjoyed a lot of what was on Toonami. Yu Yu Hakusho. There's so many. And stuff that wasn't on Toonami, at least I don't know if it ever was, that I had gotten into, was me and my friends used to watch Bubblegum Crisis. What else? There's a couple others too. But yeah, those were fun. Yeah, I don't like to consider myself though I am a fan of a bunch of different anime, but I'm not well versed. in it. Like I've seen Gungrave. Berserk had an anime, right? I swear I've seen episodes. Van Helsing. There's a couple others. That's just talking about shows, not movies. See, Paul says, what are you doing, Dave Coulier? Should be the title of that guy's biography. Don says he's kind of a snarf. Yeah, and that's the thing is I always felt like at least Snarf had a purpose. I didn't like Snarf in the remake. That was what was it, 2000? Was it 2011? Something like that. I mean, he doesn't talk. He doesn't do anything. He's just kind of a cat, just kind of a pet thing. But I didn't mind Snarf so much. And I get it. overprotective of Lion-O. Lion-O, obviously, he aged faster because his containment unit didn't seal the right way, etc., which was like, that's heady for a kid's show. So I get Snarf being this overbearing. He's like the only real parental figure that Lion-O has, and he's protective of him. So I get he's more doting and everything. His voice is a little, it's pretty grating. But Snarf has a lot of plots where it's just, whether it's purposefully hilarious or they weren't intending for it. There's some stuff. I forget exactly what happens, but he gets like Mumra's powers, and Snarf becomes Snarf Ra, and he's huge and jacked. Thundercats is one of my most favorite shows, animated or otherwise. But there's an episode where he's just kicking ass, and he's huge, and he's got like a 12-pack abs, and he's built. He's just going on a rampage. Whether it's purposely supposed to be funny or it wasn't, it's hilarious. It's hilarious. Don says, yeah, Snarf was sweet. He's got some nice moments, like definitely a more developed character than Slimer or Scrappy do. That's for sure. Ben says, have you ever seen Hulk Hogan's Rock and Roll? Oh my, have I? Bro, if I could go into the other room, I still have the bed sheets from when I was a kid, man. I use them like when it's summertime because it's a nice thin sheet. I just use it because I pass out on the couch all the time. I just use it as like a blanket. That was a great, fun show. A lot of interesting voice actors on there. This is one of my VO coaches voiced Hillbilly Jim. No way. Wow, man. Well, I got him on a bed sheet from when I was a kid. Kevin says there was an animated Planet of the Apes. The apes had tanks, guns, and buildings. Very serious animation. I gotta check that out. I'm only familiar with the live action one. I gotta check that out. Thank you for mentioning that. Kevin says Scrappy Doo was forced on writer Mark Evanier by Joe Barbera, same guy who wrote Gru the Wanderer. Oh, interesting. Well, I get they made the best of it with Scrappy Doo. There's a couple moments with Scrappy Doo that were like, okay, I get why he's here. But once, it's like when they introduce kids into the live action shows, and those are always moments where get the precocious kid, and now all of a sudden this show is done. It was going so good, now this show is done. And it's not done because they introduced the kid, it's done because the whole focus shifts to the kid. So it's like the same thing. They introduce these kinds of whatever characters, and then that's it. The whole show becomes about them. Anytime they do that and they throw off the whole harmony of the show, the whole everything, it gets so weird. Batmite, oh my lord. Yeah, Batmite. I don't know if I can find redeeming qualities for Batmite. Batmite is king of annoying comic relief. I agree. What Geek says, I really enjoyed the original and remake of Thundercats. Yeah, I dug the remake. It's just there were certain things where I was like, if you have a chance to remake something like Thundercats. Now, Thundercats to me is great the way it is, but I get it. You can do certain things to it to make it maybe pop a bit more, or if you want to explore certain themes a bit more, or if you really want to dive into certain character relationships a bit more, there are things you can do to kind of do that. And they did some of that with the remake. I thought they did. But there were other things where I was like, I don't want to see teenager Lion-O and all, like, I want to, I'd rather see them all as adults and not be a remake, but if I wish it was a continuation, and that Lion-O, they were all older, 20 or so years older, and the next generation of them was coming up. And again, not that the focus was on the next generation of them being like their kids or whatever it was or whoever was there, but more that you had a chance to keep building upon what was there. Like, I didn't think the show necessarily needed to be remade, but it definitely needed to continue, and there was an avenue for that. And I wish they had taken that instead. So, no matter what, though, a million times better than whatever that really short-lived Thundercats thing was. That abomination from a few years ago. Paul says, was that the one where Roddy Piper was the villain? Yeah, Roddy, you had the Iron Sheik. And then a character I really loved on that, and also that I really loved as a wrestler too, and unfortunately he had passed away in such a sad accident, was Junkyard Dog. If you read about what happened, the accident, and the circumstances with Junkyard Dog, man, sad. But yeah, that was that show. So what else do I got here? I got Cops. This was great. This was a fun show. This is a really fun show. My biggest problem, though, on this DVD is, like, where's Bulletproof? Bulletproof is, like, the main guy. That's this dude. He's, like, their chief of police. He's pretty much introducing every episode, like, narrating episodes and everything, too. And yet he's not even on the DVD cover? Come on, guys. Now, this thing was, like, I don't know, $5 or $6 on Amazon for the series. It's on Tubi. But I didn't want to watch commercials one year, and I was like, whatever, it's like $5. Let me pick it up. The king of animated series for me, Batman the Animated Series. Enough said. Getting into the other animated series from that DC universe, Justice League, and Superman the Animated Series. Great stuff. Susan Eisenberg was on the other day. If you hadn't had a chance yet to see that interview, that was so much fun. I'm going to definitely have her come back on again. I have a million other questions for her. And she is looking forward to that. So that went good. And then I just got a couple others. And then I got somebody waiting in the green room. I'll let you on in a minute or two. Just wanted to cover the rest of these. This big old Ninja Turtles set. There are so many discs in this set. I've only gone through halfway. It's 193 episodes. And there's just a lot of discs. Halfway through, I was like, okay, I'm turtled out. I love the Turtles. The first movie is one of my probably top 3, top 5 comic book movies of all time. But the show does have some problems. The first 4 episodes that pretty much get the entire show greenlit and set off like everything. Really solid. Top to bottom. But there's a certain point on that show where there's a noticeable decline in everything. And it gets real hard to make it through. And I think I hit that point. And it becomes a chore. It's unfortunate. Let's see, we got... Oh, thank you, Ben. Appreciate that. The Fantastic Four animated series. Still the best, to me, the best interpretation, adaptation, whatever you want to call it, of the Fantastic Four in anything ever. Solid. Some great episodes there, too, that really adapt the comics well. And then I've got the X-Men animated series. The original. Like I said, that's nothing even close to the amount of shows and animated movies and whatever that I enjoy, love, or know. But these are just some of the ones I go to once in a while. Oh, how can I forget this? Jeez Louise. The last one. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. Some other ones that I have that I can't reach because they're in the other room. And I didn't think to bring them on. They're not really comic book related, but DuckTales, Pinky and the Brain, Darkwing Duck. Even though, Darkwing Duck is obviously inspired. It wasn't based on a comic. Directly. But there's so many. The list goes on and on. So share with me some of your favorites, some of your go-tos. We can walk down memory lane for a little bit, maybe another half hour or so. And I'll bring on Paul. What's up, Paul?
Hey, what's going on, Pete?
How you doing?
Doing good. A lot of this stuff is 80s cartoons, which I'll admit are really good, but there's some great stuff in the 90s. Some people brought up The Head, and that kind of got me down a rabbit hole, remembering that MTV had a pretty solid animation studio that it started with Beavis and Butthead, but they did The Head. You also had Sam Keith's The Max.
I never saw The Head.
It was interesting.
I never saw it. I got to check it out.
It felt very indie comic. It was like just guy living out of his apartment, and then he has, an alien living in his enormous head. It's really weird.
Oh, okay.
It felt very kind of indie comic. But another one of that time period, too, was Aeon Flux. That was one that was almost kind of proto-anime, that it was like anime adjacent. It didn't have like the usual tropes. It was a little bit more serious. And then they made the series where like she could talk, and it kind of went down the toilet because they had some ideas, philosophical ideas that they thought sounded interesting, but it really was just kind of nonsense. It was better when it was silent on liquid television. But also in the mid 90s, we're talking about favorites. I would say Conan the Adventurer. They had one. It came out in the early 90s. I
remember that one.
It was a long one too. I think it was maybe like 60 episodes or so.
Yeah.
But yeah, that one was good. Gargoyles. I'm trying to think. It was at Disney.
Yeah. I loved Gargoyles. Yeah.
Yeah, Gargoyles. And even though my brother grew up on Robotech, that was kind of his war drama, anime poured over. But the contemporary in the 90s, I would say, is Exo Squad. That one for me was just a great.
Oh yeah. I remember Exo Squad.
It was another one of those too, where it was a military science fiction show where you're like, oh, there's a named character. Wait, they just died. How did they do that? And you have to process that as a kid.
Yeah. I mean, ones I don't have that I absolutely love that I watch because they're on Tubi a lot. G.I. Joe, Real American Hero, that whole series. Transformers, Voltron. I mean, I was more of like a Voltron guy than like a Robotech guy, I guess. I tried getting into Robotech a bunch. I never could do it.
Yeah, the problem was they took 3 different series and smashed them together. So it was like, each season was
great looking show, but yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, it was definitely kind of a gateway for anime for I think a lot of people. But you mentioned Bubblegum Crisis earlier. That one was one of the old school. We got them in. I think you could order it in previews back in the day because my brother and I, we were over at a comic shop. I think it was in '92 or '93. And they came in a nice clamshell VHS, all of them subtitled, because I don't think anybody was doing translations at that point. I think that's why Akira was so big. It was like the first long form anime that had American voice actors. Other than that, it was like, you're trying to convince kids to sit down and read a cartoon, and they were just like, you're crazy. But all the Masamune Shiro stuff like Appleseed, it was Dominion Tank Police. It was all pre Ghost in the Shell, and then Ghost in the Shell came out, and that kind of blew him into the stratosphere, I think. But
yeah, there's some stuff from that time period that's so great with anime, especially. That's like my time period for that stuff. It's harder for me to get into a lot of the stuff from the past 10 years or so. And I mean, I don't know, and it's not just anime, but it's also just a lot of other things too. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is, man. I don't know if it's just I'm an old weirdo, or if
No.
the stuff just isn't speaking to me, because I can't last more than 10, 15 minutes on this stuff without losing it.
No, I got you. No, I'm the same way. It's interesting because people will sit there and talk about anime to me, and I'm like, oh, I understand now how I was treated as a weird nerd back in the day. Because I'm hearing a different wavelength. Because they're coming at me saying, oh, this is awesome, you should watch it, and I gave it the old college try. I watched a season and a half of Dragon Ball, and I was like, oh my god, this is just like. It's like 75% of them talking trash to each other and then maybe a little bit of a fight. I'm like, I can't do it. This, it's for some people. It got a lot of people into watching this stuff.
It's like new school WWE,
Yep.
where it's
Yeah.
like, okay, just fight already.
Yeah.
Just
And it's just
fight.
Vince behind the scenes being like, dude, I don't want them to get injured. Just keep talking. But
Like,
yeah,
what are you doing in the ring, circling each other, trash talking for a half hour? Just fight. Cut the promo before you're in the ring, and when you're in the ring is where you fight. You don't just take the mic and you start talking and you circle each other, and then sometimes you even hand the mic over to the other guy so they can say their piece. Give me a break.
yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot like that. It's not that kind of feeling. What other kinds of I guess comic related animated shows did you enjoy? Anything I didn't mention? I mentioned a lot, but I know I didn't mention a whole bunch too.
Whew, I'm trying to think. You pretty much covered all the comic related stuff. You did mention, or what was it? You had the real Ghostbusters. It was interesting. I was reminded. I thought it was another thing that was like what is that? The Mandela effect. They had They had to call it the real Ghostbusters because there was another Ghostbusters show where they had a gorilla on the team.
Yeah.
I ran across Tom Cook. He was one of the animators for what was it, on Thundar, on He-Man, and a bunch of other stuff. And he had some animation cells in a binder. This is over at C2E2 a couple weeks ago. And I was flipping through, and I was like, "Oh my god, I remember this from when I was like 5 or 6. They had this Ghostbuster show, and I was like, wait a minute, these aren't the guys with the proton packs. They're driving around in this rickety weird car." And there's an enormous gorilla, like
Yeah, and they
kinda-
got bell bottoms on, and
yeah, it was very strange. I was like, I thought this is a strange fever dream. He's like, oh no. And then flipping through, I came across what was that, Brave Star? That was another odd
yeah,
cartoon where it was like a space western, and his horse could change to be like bipedal, and it used a shotgun. It was very strange. But yeah.
yeah.
He worked on a lot of stuff, but it was cool. I had him. He was doing sketches for commission. I had him do an Ookla from Thundar.
Oh, nice.
So I was like, it was really cool. Yeah, it was fun. I was there with the nieces, and we were flipping through the animation cells. He had some Tom and Jerry ones in there. They were freaking out, talking about their childhood, and we were laughing. Me and my brother were laughing. We're like, your childhood? This stuff is, it's a lot of people's childhoods. But
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I think that's one of the big things too. I don't think they've had that since maybe Animaniacs, where you had like orchestral music to most of the cartoons anymore.
Yeah, that
At
made
least on that level.
that made a huge difference. Having just even when I'm listening to or when I have it on the background with Batman the Animated Series, and my wife will be like, "What are you watching?" Because she can hear the music. She's like, "I thought you had on, like some kind of classical music thing, And I'm like, "No, it's Batman the Animated Series." I'm like, that's when they used instruments and orchestras to make music for children's cartoons, And it's like, oh boy.
That makes sense. That's Warner Brothers as well. So I guess maybe they just, since they had them on staff, they're like, just get the orchestra in. We'll get them.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I always wonder when I go back and I see stuff like this, or when I talk about things on a show like this, where I'm looking at Wizard Magazine or all these other things from the past and everything too, and I'm always thinking, where were the people involved that worked on this, and where did they end up? What happened to them? And then what happened to the people that were under them that were kind of supposed to carry the torch, and not necessarily to keep repeating every single thing that was being done, but to also make sure that quality was being pushed, and you were doing new and better stuff and finding innovative ways and being creative and all this other stuff. Where did all of those people go? And even if they didn't stay, or they in the corporate world or whatever, and they went independent, or they did something else, or they went somewhere else, I'm always curious, like, where did they go? Where did they end up? Because it just feels like there's a vacuum that was left, and a bunch of people came in there, and for one reason or another, it's the same standards weren't there, the same kinds of storytelling weren't there, and it's not for everything, but it's for a lot of it. I always wonder what happened with that, because there's a noticeable difference where, and we see it across the board, where it feels like things kind of kept going on an upward progression. It's not like this stuff is perfect, but things were getting better and better and better, and there was being stuff was being built upon what came before, and you could see it constantly. And then it felt like a big giant nosedive hit, just for the sake of it. And it was like this postmodern kind of thinking of all the previous stuff was bad, and we got to reinvent the wheel, build a better mousetrap out of crap, essentially, and then applaud ourselves for it. It's a very weird kind of thing across the board when it came with that. It's so strange, but it feels like there's a lot of that had happened, and I'm always wondering, where did everybody go?
Yeah, it's strange because like the voice actors are still around, and some of them are still getting work, like the really good guys like Peter Cullen and all that. But as far as the creators, who knows? It just seems like what they think is the IPs are evergreen, and that they can just do like a 10 to 12 year turnaround and be like, all right, we got to flip the burger over and get it for the next generation. So let's tweak things here and there.
Yeah, like I think there's a real weird myth that keeps getting perpetuated about the characters and stuff have become that they're bigger than whoever was involved creating and working on them. And yeah, they'll be more recognized, that's for sure. But the reason that they are recognized and beloved is because of the people who worked on them.
Right.
So it's like to then turn around and act like, well, oh no, the character did all the heavy lifting. People just kind of came in. It could be a revolving door. It didn't really matter who was doing what. The character is the thing that people are coming here for. Yeah, well, the character is the thing people are coming here for, but it's only because of the fact that people made it that way. So if you start saying like, oh, well, we can get anyone to come in and work on X, Y, and Z property, it doesn't really matter as long as they're just kind of putting out something, then it'll be good. And that's just demonstrably false.
Yeah.
So it's weird though that's kind of a mindset that feels like it pervades.
Yeah. And that's a nail you just cannot hammer through their heads, because you can pull out copies of Batman the Animated Series and Justice League and be like, these characters have been around for almost a century now. Well, yeah, just about. And it took this one guy's unique fingerprint and art style to kind of make them big. That's why these stand out.
Yeah.
Not to say Super Friends is worse or anything, but these will go down in history. And they were IPs. It was an IP that already existed, but it was the brushstrokes of the artist that brought people to the table.
Yeah, exactly. That's interesting.
Yeah.
But Paul, I got someone else waiting in the back room here.
Sure.
So I'm gonna have to bid you adieu. But before you go, give me one of your favorite comic-related animated shows.
Ooh, comic-related. One that doesn't get enough love, and it's unfortunate it didn't continue. Todd McFarlane's Spawn on HBO was actually really good.
Yeah.
And it's cool that I think it was the last Mortal Kombat game, they added Spawn as like a character, you could DLC character, and they had Keith David voice him. So it was a nice little piece of continuity.
Oh, nice.
It was the same voice actor from the cartoon. But yeah.
That's another one I have, but it's in storage. Silverhawks, too, is another one I have that's in storage.
Oh,
also,
Silverhawks.
The Iron Man animated series, too.
Yep.
So, but yeah, that's a good one, man. That's a good one. Spawn. All right, man. Thank
All
you
right.
so much for stopping by. Have a great 3-day weekend. Hope you're having the first day of it has been good for you.
All right. Take it easy, Pete.
All right, man. Have a good one. All right. Up next, we got Kevin Ryan. What's up, Kevin?
Hey, Peter, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I am good, and as I say in my caption here, I was glued to the TV watching every cartoon for 30 years. So I love cartoon animation. And what you were just talking about, a lot of the guys that wrote this stuff, it was all the same guys.
Yep.
Like, you remember Thundar the Barbarian?
Oh yeah.
You know who designed all the characters on that show?
Oh yeah.
Jack Kirby and Alex Toth.
Yep.
And I was just even before I saw your show tonight, I was talking with a friend of mine about Toth. Do you know how many series he designed characters for?
Oh my lord.
I mean, do you know?
No, it's got to be dozens.
You ever seen the show Devlin about the family of motorcycle riders?
No.
There was a cartoon about it was very quiet, no science fiction, no craziness. He did all the characters. He did Johnny Quest. He designed Space Ghost, the Herculoids, the 1960s Fantastic Four. You wonder where these guys went. It's not the same guys.
Yeah.
But I wish these guys would remember that there was a blueprint. And you've never seen the animated Return to the Planet of the Apes.
No.
Would you believe Ted Knight was the announcer? Remember, you know Ted Knight?
No way, really.
Yeah, the guy who did Ted Baxter, from Caddyshack.
Yeah.
And so he'd come on with his stentorian voice, and he'd go, "Return to the planet of the apes," and there'd be like lightning bolts going off and explosions, and it would scare the devil out of you.
I got to check that out. Yeah, I'm only aware of the live action series.
Yeah, do you know how familiar are you with the Filmation company?
Pretty familiar.
Yeah, they did a lot of work with him. He's actually the announcer on the original Batman
Oh, I can hear that now.
from the cartoon.
Yeah,
And-
yeah.
And he also did a series called what the heck was I? The music was so cool. It was The Fantastic Voyage, about a whole team of adventurers that shrunk down
They shrunk
to
them down. Yeah.
Yeah, and they used a theremin in the music. You ever see a theremin?
Yeah.
They used
That
it on
thing's
Scooby-
wild.
Yeah, with the right.
The
And so
Star Trek instrument.
Yeah. And they would have Ted Knight come on and say, time limit 12 hours, and the music going. And I mean, what kid doesn't go for this? This is how you made classic animation. Like what's your favorite old school animated show?
Oh man. My favorite old school one.
Mm-hmm.
Holy smokes, man. Well, I'll tell you, I enjoyed a lot of Hanna-Barbera, and I was into a lot of Looney Tunes as a kid. But as far as old school animation, I mean, if I'm trying to think as old back as I possibly can, it's got to. I don't know if there's much older than this for me, being like really into it, not just aware of it, but definitely Max Fleischer's Superman.
Oh, that was just incredible. But you brought up the Looney Tunes, which I don't think you really talked about much on the show. Do you remember one you know who Chuck Jones is, the director?
Oh yeah.
Have you ever seen Transylvania 65000?
Yeah.
Where Bugs Bunny winds up battling a vampire?
Yeah.
I used to fall on my chair watching that. With the abracadabra, hocus pocus, you have to write it for an adult, I think. And this is why Batman succeed, the Batman animated. You write it for an adult, and the kids will get it, and the adults will get it, and you could still watch it when you're 40, 50 years old, and boy, it works.
Oh yeah. And it'll hit you at different moments in your life in different ways.
Yeah,
but I can't picture there's so many things that have come out in the past 20 or so years in animation where I'm just like, I don't know if anyone's going to watch this in 10,
because
20, 30, 40 years.
The characters are screaming. And a friend of mine notices he watches a lot of cartoons with his children, and all the characters are screaming. And I'm like, what? Why?
Yeah, it's constant high anxiety, weird, like, and there's lots of passive aggressive behavior on the shows. It's just very strange, and it's passive aggressiveness is a real strange storytelling device, especially. But when you're talking about something like an animated show where you really need characters to be constantly direct in their intentions and their motives and in their action, and even if they're not going to be overtly vocal with it, they have to at least physically be doing something to suggest what's going to occur within the story. And there's a lot of characters that are just, they're so passive aggressive. It's so weird. All I can think is kids watching it all the time too and picking up on this stuff.
The first season of Scooby-Doo is obviously one of the best cartoon series ever done. And if you look at the writers and the plots, a friend of mine pointed this out to me years ago. He said, if you ever watch old radio shows, a lot of the same writers worked on Scooby-Doo that used to do old radio shows for television, or, when they did all the dramatic shows on the radio. Mm-hmm. And so if you watch Scooby-Doo, everything is very descriptive. Like you'll see Shaggy and Scooby walk into a room and Shaggy will say, "Hey, Scoob, check out this sandwich I just made." And it's like, yeah, he just picked up a sandwich. So we get it. We're walked through the plot. We're able to hold on to the story, which is why we can watch it years later, or anybody of any age, whether you're 440 or 400, you can watch Scooby-Doo and go, this is amazing.
Oh, yeah.
And it evoked emotion. My mother, when we were kids, used to have to set up an intercom when we would go watch Saturday morning TV, because we'd turn on Scooby-Doo and my sister and I would get freaked out by all the monsters.
Yeah, that first season is legitimately, there's some frightening things in that first season.
Yeah,
especially for a kid.
Mr. Hyde and the giggling ghost at the airport with the and it's like, Mr. Creeps and Mr. Crawls and the ice cream phantoms, and it's like, that's what you want. You want a story. I don't care if it's on paper or in a film or a cartoon. You want it to move you, make you go, wow.
Yeah.
I think that's what makes the classics. And there's some good stuff now. By the way, Peter, this might blow your mind. Who is the most successful film actor financially of all time?
Frank Welker.
Oh my gosh, you got it. Nobody knows this. Frank Welker, who played, of course, in cartoon.
You accumulate his box office draw for what he's been involved in. It's insane.
And he started out playing Freddy on Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
Actually, you know where he started out? I don't want to get too much away from the cartoons, but he was in a movie called How to Frame a Fig with Don Knotts back in the 60s.
Was that animated?
No, he was live on the show. He started out as an actor, and then he got Scooby-Doo, and then he just started to get Goober and the Ghost Chasers and Casey and the Sunshine Kids, and then he wound up working on Transformers and right on up through.
Yeah,
but,
hell, he's Ray in Real Ghostbusters. He's Iceman and Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. Ton of stuff.
By the way, you're a Ghostbusters.
Still working.
Oh yeah, you're a Ghostbusters fan, I assume.
Oh yeah.
Do you know the story of the Real Ghostbusters? Because your last guest brought it up.
What do you mean specifically?
Well, they went to go make the movie, the Harold Ramis, Bill Murray movie, and they couldn't think of a title for it. And that was based on the old 1940s Bowery Boys serials, like Catch That Ghost and Catch That Spook and that kind of thing. And I don't know if you know the Bowery Boys. It was kind of like Archie and Veronica in a way. Mm-hmm. They would all get into some weird adventure. They would go to a mansion because it was $1 million treasure and whatever, and there'd be ghosts or whatever. And they based Ghostbusters on that. They were looking for a title, and they found this old 1970s show starring the guys from F Troop. And they kept playing with titles, but they kept coming back to Ghostbusters, and they had footage of a crowd chanting, "Ghostbusters, Ghostbusters." And so they wound up having to go to Filmation and pay for the rights to use the title from that old live TV show. And then when they went to go make the cartoons, one company that owned the rights to the film did the Ghostbusters show, the official Ghostbusters, and then Filmation, which owned the rights to the live show, did the real Ghostbusters. That's why they say there's a gorilla in it.
Yeah, yeah.
And you say Frank Welker did the voices for real Ghostbusters. Was that the Dave Coulier show?
Yeah, that was the one where he took over for Lorenzo Music after on Venkman's character.
No, by the way, blame Mark Evanier for that too, because he's the guy who hired Lorenzo Semple to play Garfield. He's a cartoon wizard, Mark Evanier. He was the showrunner for Garfield and Friends.
Oh,
okay.
And that's why if you watch Garfield, you're going to notice that, who did they use on that? June Foray. Do you know her?
No.
June Foray, who just died a few years ago.
Oh, wait, yes, I do. Yeah, she did a ton of voices.
She was originally Rocky the Squirrel on Bullwinkle.
Yeah, yeah.
And then she went on eventually. She even guest starred in several times in Garfield.
Yeah.
Because she was friends with Mark. Mark knows everybody in Hollywood. And so he went ahead and got her, and she kept working for, 50 years. And how good was Bullwinkle? I don't know if you've ever spent a lot of time watching that show.
Oh, yeah, no, I did as a kid. Especially, it was always on in tandem with the Dick Tracy cartoon.
Really? Where did you grow up?
New York. It was on, I think it was on Fox in the afternoons or something.
Okay, because Dick Tracy was god-awful, I thought. Did you enjoy it?
I liked some of it. When I was a kid.
But Bullwinkle was written absolutely for adults. And all the voice people, all the writers, Jay Ward, and that's why they eventually hired Jay. I think Bullwinkle was originally sponsored by Cheerios. That's who made it, because all the 1960s Cheerios ads are Bullwinkle. And then Jay Ward wound up getting hired by Ralston to do all the animated commercials for Captain Crunch.
Oh, okay.
That's why you hear a lot of the same voices, like Paul Frees.
Oh, Paul Frees is a legend.
Yeah, he's the voice of Captain Crunch. But man,
well, then you get what? I forget the guy's name. The original Tony the Tiger. He also.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, Thurl, right? Yeah.
Thurl Ravenscroft.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, because he was also the dude who's singing in Mr. Grinch there, the mean one, Mr. Grinch.
Also, he's the same guy who sang Grim Grinning Gross Come Out to Socialize, The Haunted Mansion.
Yeah, that's right.
And he's Tony the Tiger, and he's the Grinch, or the narrator on the Grinch. And how do you find a better name in Hollywood history than Thurl Ravenscroft?
That's right.
I need that. I'm changing my name to Thurl Ravenscroft. But you want to know how to make good cartoons, man? These guys left us the blueprint. They wrote the Bible.
That's what I'm talking about. Is that it's not so much because a lot of them have passed on and moved on, retired, etc. But it's like, where was everybody underneath them that was working with them, and where are they? What are they doing? Where are they to carry on?
I think these guys come to the table and they say, I'm going to put my own spin on it. I'm going to try my own stuff. And it's like...
I know some of them got forced out. I know some of them, like in the case of Frank Oz. Frank Oz got essentially forced out of doing anything with the Muppets.
Do you know who Hoyt Curtin is?
Name sounds vaguely familiar.
He was the music guy. You were talking about orchestrating cartoons. Hoyt Curtin was the Hanna-Barbera musical director.
Oh, okay.
So he did the theme song for everything from Magilla Gorilla to Super Friends, that bum ba dum bum bum bum.
Yeah,
he wrote that. And he was continued to work. There was a guy named Gary Frank, who was one of the first people to bring anime into the United States. And the first project he worked on was Gotcha Man, which he turned into Battle of the Planets.
Yep.
And the guy who did the music for that, which if you've ever seen the opener to it is stunning, was Hoyt Curtin. Same guy.
Wow.
He wrote the Flintstones theme. He wrote the Jetsons theme. So it just, if you know what these guys accomplished, do more of what they did. Try to. I hate to say it, but emulate that style. And
well, if you're gonna, I mean, if you're gonna emulate anyone, you should be aiming to emulate the best. At the very least, learning from them. There's so much to learn.
Yeah, if I could get Hoyt Curtin and Alex Toth to create a cartoon, it's going to be a hit.
Yeah,
it's going to be awesome. It's going to be stuff people talk about, and yet we're dealing with the what do they call it? The California style. What's that
was
new
it?
cartoon?
Cal Arts you're talking
Cal
about,
Arts,
right?
yeah, the Cal Arts style, and it's like, guys, I don't know who watches that over the age of like 12. And the cartoons are for the kids, I get it. But do you really think they're going to be watching that in 20 years?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. And that's the thing that's so strange, because like what you're talking about before, in terms of, you make them with stories and characters that adults could get into. A lot of this stuff, you could look at it, especially cartoons from the 80s and up to like maybe 95, 96, and then it starts to turn either overtly for adults or overtly for kids. A lot of that stuff, you could just say that this was going to be live action. Same script, same plot, every single thing about it. And if you had the technology at the time to do the effects or to do whatever else, you could have pulled it off, you could have. And it would have been believable in live action as much as it was believable in animation. And then at some point in time, it becomes... And if anything, it looked like they did a lot of stuff in animation to save on the fact that they couldn't either do the special effects or they didn't have the budget to do the special effects, and it was so much more easier to just do, let's animate it and go for that. And you can have whatever you want to have. You don't have to completely destroy a town to blow it up. You don't have to create all these different things. You could just have it be drawn. But somewhere along the line, it became, no, this is, like, animation is for this type of person. And even it's strange to see companies like Disney, which were essentially being founded upon the fact that animation should be treated like it's just another way to tell a story. It's not to tell a story for kids. It's just another way to tell a story.
Right, do it well.
And, yeah. And then meanwhile, it turns into every single thing coming out of Disney nowadays is live action regurgitation of the stuff that they did so perfectly animated. It's so strange.
And then and done in a way that we're going to put our spin on it. So, and it's like, oh God. Sometimes they get it right. Did you ever see they tried to revive the Wacky Races?
Yeah.
And they did a pilot for it with the Bridge of Snakes. Did you ever seen that piece?
Yep.
That's brilliant. And then they did bring it back, but everybody's screaming and yelling and all the characters are behaving like 8-year-olds. That's not Wacky Races.
Yeah.
You go back to the 30s and you could go down the street to the newsstand, and these guys were all working in New York City. So you go down to the newsstand and you got stacks and stacks and stacks of pulp magazines. And all the writers took them home and they read them, and then they went to write radio shows. And they did the radio shows, and millions of people listened to The Shadow, and they listened to Captain Midnight and Superman and Have Gun Will Travel. And then they went ahead to the 60s and made cartoons. So they were working off of a type and a theme and a tone that you could just keep plugging in and building stories and building stories and building stories. And I think maybe the problem with a lot of animators today, and the reason the stuff comes out in many cases dopey, and I think you forget the bad shows quicker than you forget the good ones. They don't have this background. They've never heard of any of this stuff.
Yeah. And I think that can be said for so many things in terms of what's going on, whether it's comics, it's animation, it's movies, it's television, it's music, all kinds of different forms of the arts and storytelling. There's so much of it where I can't help but think, even for a lot of the people who are consuming some of this, where I'm just wondering, like when the uproar came about, like comics aren't diverse enough or something, and I'm wondering, like, why don't you start diversifying your reading? Because it seems like that's the biggest problem. because there's all kinds of stuff. You just got to diversify your interests and your tastes and go find it. It's there. But if you're going to be saying like, oh no, comics are just like this kind of thing and have always been like this kind of thing, I don't know what comics you're reading, but that's not the entirety of that. The same thing goes for music, TV, shows, movies, everything, books, all over the place. There's every single thing you could possibly want is out there in one way or the other. And some of it is unbelievably popular, and yet people will just act as if it doesn't exist at all because it hasn't been directly shoved into whatever it is that they're looking for that thing to now be. Like they want so desperately for a certain thing to change and be this other thing instead. And then you're like, well, that other thing, it exists. Here it is. And they're like, yeah, but that's not this. I want this thing to be that thing. It's crazy. The arguments for it are sometimes borderline insane because and I've been in the middle of it and I've stopped having them with people. But it's like you'll be like, oh, that thing that it sounds like you want this thing to be, here it is. It's this thing. This is what you're looking for. And they don't want that. They want this other thing to be that instead.
We didn't always treat, I'll give them a point that we didn't always treat minorities well historically in a lot of the classic stuff that I'm talking about. Like Asians, like black people, they were the sidekick or they were the comedy relief. And we obviously don't want that. But if you look at the old Planet of the Apes animated show, and I know you haven't seen it, but it was three main astronauts. It was a blonde-haired white guy, a girl, and a black guy, and everybody took everything seriously. So, but it was, if you watch the Planet of the Apes movies, or even if you watch the television show, it's really essentially the same stories, because Planet of the Apes is Planet of the Apes. But they had no problem treating a minority character respectfully in the same way that 60 years ago, Stan Lee was treating Black Panther seriously or Falcon seriously. Yeah. So you don't have to change it. You don't have to say, oh, okay, well now George Jetson is a black guy. No, that you didn't, you're not telling me any interesting stories. Tell me a good story. I don't care what color George Jetson is.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or whether he's in a wheelchair
and it's a slippery slope too, because as soon as you start doing the whole switcheroo thing or the swap type thing or whatever, you start saying that, well, now we've set a precedent. And so now everything in 10, 20 years, when the creativity dries up again, or sooner, with the way that the world moves along so much faster now you're saying it's going to become open season on everybody. And you're allowing for that possibility to happen. And I don't mean you specifically, obviously, but people that are advocating for that kind of thing. Instead of saying, let's either champion something that has maybe not been given the spotlight that it deserves and is interesting, and there's good characterization and story behind that, or let's create something new and have that instead be on there. But instead it turns into, let's just keep going back and either remaking or rebooting or swapping or flipping or doing this or doing that, and then we'll have it under the guise of it's about representation and things like that, and it becomes this big kind of farcical form of pandering that's all a bunch of crap. It's just a marketing term. It's just a gimmick. It's just something to make up for a lack of creativity. Meanwhile, there exists a plethora of these characters and stories that they could just catapult that instead.
I don't mind redoing the old stuff. I'd like to see new stuff done with the old stuff. Take for example, Popeye, which has got to be one of the most popular animated series of all time. I don't know if you'd agree. It certainly was popular in its day.
Oh, well, yeah. Popeye was huge.
Right. And it doesn't really take place in any particular time. It takes place on a dock, in a fishing village somewhere. But we know who those characters are and how they work. Popeye, Olive Oil, Wimpy, and Bluto. And if you get into the Thimble Theater stuff, the stuff that was done in the very early 20th century, there's other characters like Castor Oil and Mama Oil and Giesel and things like that. but we don't need to add new characters, and we don't need a new tone. We need to use the old tone, and we can still tell hundreds of stories.
Oh yeah, well I mean, for instance, Batman the Animated Series, obviously, right? So
Okay.
that's not specifically based on, and there's some amalgamations of certain characters, like Clayface is an amalgamation of the various versions that there were of Clayface. Two-Face is a character that's given way more gravitas than he enjoyed in a lot of the comics. So you get a series like Batman the Animated Series that is essentially doing that, but there isn't this overt sense of remake reboot because they nail the characterization and the core elements of what resonates with so many of the people that were fans of the character to begin with.
They know
So-
what works.
Yeah, exactly. So like that, I'm all for that. That's wonderful to see. When it's kind of more about a return to form and bolstering what fundamentally makes these things great. But when it's saying, and a lot of them are like this now, when it comes along and you go, let's just do our own twist on it, our own vision, whatever it may be, so that essentially this character or these stories are now relatively unrecognizable. And then they wonder when they fall flat on their face. It's like, well, I don't know who this would be for. And it's weird when someone goes in there and they're not really. There's a lot of people who are in charge, and it's weird that not one person is coming along saying this. Who is this for? Because if we're going to use this legacy branding, it should at least appeal to people who would be aware of this. And if we're not going to be using something like this and making it recognizable and maintaining the core of what makes that resonate, then why aren't we just making something new and just who gives a crap about the legacy branding and everything else? Let's keep that intact and keep that the way it is instead of slowly eroding away at it. That's the thing that's so baffling to me.
Did you ever see it was a show called The New Adventures of Popeye, and CBS did it right around 1980, and it featured Popeye and his three nephews, who were all little kids, Pip-Eye and Poop-Eye. I think that was actually their names. And it was Popeye would like, the kids would like pull a dog's tail or something, and Popeye would talk to them and say, well, you shouldn't do that, kids. And it's like, no. Popeye, if you've ever heard he's about punching people in the face. That's what he does. So no. I don't want to see Popeye giving his nephews a talking to. I want to see him punching people in the face. And if Paul Dini and Bruce Timm had Batman walking around talking to people, that show would have sucked. But if you
Now
can
you listen.
Yeah, right. But you can still talk to people. A little early in the chat, I was talking to Flippy Flu. What is his name? World of Comics. I can't remember what it stands for. He's probably still in the chat. But we were talking about the Justice League episode Wild Cards, where the Joker puts the bombs all over Las Vegas.
Oh yeah, that's a great episode.
And if you remember the denouement of that whole story, where we find out Ace's backstory and we find out she was severely abused, and I don't want to give it away in case you haven't seen it, but it's very talky and very deep and it's tragic is what it is.
Yeah.
And so you can still have a denouement that's talky, that makes a point, that's relevant, and yet they spend most of the episode punching each other in the face. That's what superheroes do really, really well.
Yeah. Well, it's all about making sure that whatever is going on within the story makes sense for what and when it's going on. You can't have the whole thing, and you need those emotional ups and downs to kind of pull you throughout. But so if you have the whole thing be action the whole time, it's going to feel monotonous. If you have the whole thing talking, it's going to be monotonous. But you have those moments of those nice breakups, and you can really do it effectively, especially depending upon the kind of story you're trying to tell. That episode does it great.
Let's talk about the dumbest cartoon of all time, which is absolutely fabulous, which is the Roadrunner. Okay. And we have Wile E. Coyote, and he pulls out a page from the Acme catalog, and he just ordered the Acme Cosmic Rocket machine, and he fires it off, and then all of a sudden he turns to the camera and he holds up a sign and says, "This isn't going to work, is it?" There's your emotional moment right there. He's got a look on his face like, oh no, I should just make sure my insurance is paid up right now. And then, in 3 seconds, he's going to be twisted with his arm sticking out of his nose. Wonderful. You just told us a great story because you built up the tension. You gave us an emotional moment and then you punched somebody in the face. This is a cool adventure story. I hate to put it that way. Do I make sense?
No, it makes total sense. I mean, that's what storytelling is. And there's a point to that. There's a point to it. And you need that setup. You need the expectation. You need the expectation to be turned upside down, subvert it in an entertaining way that then exceeds the expectation of the outcome, and that's how you make something that goes, oh wow, look at that. That's funny, that's horrific, that's pulse pounding, that's et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Every single, depending upon how you manipulate those series of events, you elicit that emotion and you get that point across of what it is within that story you're trying to tell.
I broke it down.
It makes total sense.
I broke it down in that I realized that jokes or the point of a story, whether it's animated or not, you need verisimilitude, and then you need, which is pulling something close into real life, but then giving us a surprise where it's not quite real life. And another amazing animated series,
the balance of the real and the surreal.
Yeah, the real and the surreal. Look at Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids. Do you know that one of the kids that used to hang around the junkyard, I don't know if you watched that show or if it's too old for you.
I watched very little of it. I'm aware of it.
It's 6 or 7 kids hanging out in a junkyard. That's the show. And if you grew up as a kid in the 70s, it's entirely probable that you would be playing in a junkyard at some point. And so you got it. It was like you and your gang hanging around in the vacant lot in the corner.
Yeah, it's like what I loved about Heathcliff and Top Cat.
Okay. Oh yeah, Top Cat. They all used to hang out at the junkyard, sure.
Yeah.
But one of those kids was actually Bill Cosby.
Yeah.
He was referred to in the show as Bill. And it was all of his kooky friends, the kid that wore the hat over his face and the kid that mumbled all the time because his teeth were too big. And you knew these kids. These are kids that lived in your neighborhood. So it worked because you could, it felt familiar, and yet they would get into scrapes that nobody would ever get into. And so even though nobody was punching each other in the face, you got it. You loved it.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard the original Fat Albert comedy routine?
No.
Oh my God. They go to the movies to watch Frankenstein at the theater. All the kids in the neighborhood. And Frankenstein comes on the screen, and Fat Albert freaks out, jumps out of his seat, and runs up the aisle and knocks 6 people over, screaming, "Hey, hey, hey, get out of my way." And he runs into the lobby and he knocks over the theater manager. I've seen this happen. That's why it's funny. That's why it works. So you give us the familiar and the unfamiliar, and you can apply this to the Batman animated, the familiar and the unfamiliar.
It's a constant juxtaposition. That's all it is. It's why it's weird when they want to harp on the realistic element of representation and all this other stuff, because then it turns into now you're severely limiting yourself. Once the conversation turns into fictional characters must be representative in a realistic sense, now it turns into you've eliminated Transformers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Muppets. You've eliminated anything that's obviously not a human being, not living on Earth. Not a realistic type person that's in the now.
Oh my God, the Muppets! I mean, I know it's not animated, but the Muppet Show. What is that show? That show is a 1920s vaudeville theater.
Yes, 100%.
That's all it is. This is what would happen if you were in a vaudeville theater run by insane people. And so every episode of that show clicks because it's a vaudeville show run by insane people, and you get it. Everybody's been to a live theatrical show, and you wonder what's going on backstage. Well, here it is. And so you don't need representation because everybody is represented. It's like, okay, where are the purple people? There's Gonzo.
I like to see, you know, and it's not about representing. That's where I think it goes wrong real fast, about trying to represent some kind of fictional whoever that you made up is out there that's supposed to watch this and relate to this character. First of all, that's incredibly reductive to do that to people and say that this is the character that so and so will relate to, especially on a superficial level. But, you know, get in, not have it represent any specific person, but have different personalities in there just for the sake of keeping it interesting, because you can't have everybody have the same personality, because that's boring, and you can't have everyone having this unbelievably monotonously different level of personality where everyone's always at conflict. But you do need to have some characters that get along, some that don't, some that sort of see eye to eye, some that really don't, it's super far apart. You need to have this diversity among how they are and how they interact and what their worldview and perspectives are like given a certain situation. And that's what keeps things interesting. If the whole point of storytelling is to provide that kind of perspective and atmosphere to keep that story interesting. But if you don't do that and you have this kind of mentality where you have to have it representative of someone, and this character now is representative of a certain kind of person or a certain group of people, now how much are you going to do with that character? And are you ever going to make that character do something wrong? Because now you're going to be having an indictment upon a whole group of people because now you can't make that character a villain, or you can't make them do something bad. They can't learn a lesson. They can't better themselves. They should be the best. So it turns into a really weird area to paint yourself into. This little corner that you now have been like, oh, well, we just did this, but now we've severely limited our storytelling capacity for this character and have made them an unbelievably boring, useless character in the process. And that happens every single time when they do stuff like that. And it never works out.
There's no progression to the character.
None whatsoever.
They're already wonderful. We can't take the black character and have him do something bad because, oh my gosh.
Because now it's an indictment. Now it turns into, oh, well, what are you trying to say about black people? Because this person is now, you know, you make the white character a certain way. Well, what are you trying to say with that? Well, what do you, the character is the character. It's not an indictment or a representation or a referendum or a this or a that or anything about anyone other than that character in that situation and in that moment in the story. And if we have to say that that's not what that is, and every single part of it is an allegory representing other people in the real world based on superficial shared qualities, that's strange.
Well, they're trying to teach us a moral lesson, and it's like telling a joke and starting with the punchline. Like we're getting far afield of cartoons, but Aesop's Fables, The Fox and the Grapes. Yeah, are you familiar with it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Where the fox is jumping for the grapes that are high on the tree and he can't get them, and then he goes, well, they were probably sour anyway. And really what the story is about is people who show bad characteristics because they can't achieve, so they demean what they were trying to get at. And the fox really walks away without bettering himself, but you learn from his lesson. The reader learns from his lesson. And so, but you can't say, okay, kids, here's a story about what you shouldn't do. No, you have to walk us through it and get to the end so that we're thrilled by what happens at the end. So we want the next story. And that's what they don't do. They start out by saying, here's the lesson for today, kids. You should learn it. And that's not a story. That's a lecture.
Yeah, it's essentially, here's the lesson that is going to be taught, and look out for the cues that coincide with the lesson.
Yeah, pick up on the lesson. You can even do that and be real educational. There was you probably never heard of this. It took me 50 years to find it, by the way. When I was in first grade, they did an educational film strip, and I watched it 100 times when I was a kid, and then it took me forever. I finally found it on the Internet Archive. It's called What Do You Do About the Rules? And it's about a team of superheroes called the Cat People. And the Panther Man He goes down to make a car payment at the bank, and while he's there, the bank gets robbed. But he has his son meeting him, and his son is across the street. So he has to sneak out the third-story window, and the son sees him doing it. So he tells the son he's secretly Panther Man. And then the cat people want to throw him out and take away his superpowers because he broke the rule of telling people who you really are, because that would endanger everyone. So they form a trial, and they try him. By the way, all of this is illustrated by Gray Morrow, the comic book artist.
Yeah, wow.
And so the whole thing is they did this with the idea, we're going to teach the kids a lesson, but it's a cool lesson because you have the verisimilitude of the father and son, the making the car payment, but yet it's kind of kooky. They're superheroes, and we're going to have a try. And it's like, wow, okay, you guys knew how to tell a story. And that's what's missing from today's storytelling, is it looks like the studio says, well, if everybody's screaming and yelling and jumping up and down and they all behave the same, then we have a show. No, you don't have a show. And I think that's where am I getting too deep in that this is why the classic stuff works?
No, I think if anything, it's a really good conversation about it, and it applies not just to obviously animation and whatever, but it applies to every form of storytelling.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this is a good analysis of it for why certain things are working and certain things don't. And now it's obviously there's still stuff nowadays that does work. Sometimes I really struggle to find it. But, and it's not like everything back in the day worked as well. But you could see that there was a push. There was a push to try to find what did work. And when something didn't work, they moved on to, okay, let's try to find what does work. And that seemed to come about with the purpose of trying to make something that really resonated. Whereas now it's like, no, they'll kind of almost like go down with the ship, because it's about the message and it's about whatever it is they're trying to push, and it's like, this kind of virtuous sort of self-righteousness, and it's not about putting the story and the character and the audience first. It's about putting a lot of other stuff first, and that everybody else should be along for the ride. And then when they aren't, sometimes, if not more often than not, there's castigation involved on the audience, and that, oh, well, people are being a certain kind of way, and that's why they're not enjoying this or supporting that or whatever. It turns into a guilt trip on the audience, instead of the audience being like, look, we're recognizing that largely this doesn't ring true, and we're calling you on it. And that's basically what that is. And they should go, oh crap, we're off the mark as storytellers. Time to go back to the drawing board.
Well, you take a company like Disney, which is Marvel, which is Disney, same thing. And now you have the theme parks, you have films that are and merch, and it's making hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. So when they do a bad film or they do a bad comic book, they can say, well, okay, we lost money on that, but we really didn't lose money because we made it in all these other areas. Back in the day, if you were Joe Barbera and you didn't sell network television time,
yep,
you were done. You were eating ramen noodles for a month. Or if you were Art Clokey doing Gumby and it didn't work, you were screwed. So all these guys had to be good out of the gate. They had to hire the best people in the industry, or they couldn't make it.
Yep.
Do you know Dan Monroe has a YouTube channel that Whatever Happened to? Music, Movies, and Monsters?
No,
I'm
not familiar.
He's been doing really good analysis of old classic series and films, and he talks a lot about Irwin Allen. He loves Irwin Allen,
okay,
who did Lost in Space and Time Tunnel and Land of the Giants.
Yeah.
Who did he hire to do his music? John Williams. I wonder whatever happened to him. I wonder
he's
if he ever
okay,
wanted to,
right? That.
Yeah, he's kind of average, yeah. But or when you're looking at George Lucas, he needs a poster for Star Wars. Who does he call? Greg Hildebrandt. For God's sake, no! You either hire the best people or you die. And today, if you have a mega corporation worth umpteen $1 billion, yeah, you can put out a crap product and you'll be fine.
Which is so ironic, because you figure they're the ones that absolutely have so much more invested and the money to put in and get the best people. And meanwhile, it seems like they're cutting the pennies, down to whatever the smallest size they could possibly, just to save a little bit more. And meanwhile, you get a lot of independent creators out there, especially as of late, that are producing some top of the line stuff, or at least hiring the best in their ability to do so. And it's jarring to see. It's like there's a complete inversion that's taking place among the strategies that are being used. Well, we should see the absolute best being set by who can do that, which is the people who are in the positions that they are. If you're at the top of the game, you should be at the best level.
Well, if you're familiar with folks like Graham Nolan, or I don't remember who it is, but there's a book out there called Wolf and Batsy. You might be familiar with it. Done by very, very good creators who, if they don't sell comic books, they don't make money. Whereas the guy from Disney, he's in the guild and he gets paid first. So does it matter if his show works or resonates with the public? He got paid.
Yep, that's true.
And that's the mistake.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things that have happened within that corporate bureaucratic structure. That's for sure.
Yeah, and the networks are the same way. They if it works, great. If it doesn't work, yeah, we'll just move on and do something else.
Yeah.
So there's good stuff out there, even in animation. Although I can't think of anything in the last several years in terms of animation that's really stunning. Can you?
I've seen people talk about it. Personally, I haven't experienced it. So from my personal perspective, a lot of the things that I've tried to get into, I end up within 5 minutes. I have to shut it off.
The last good thing I think I saw. All right, somebody says Vox.
But if someone, okay, so I'll check that out. If anyone else has something within like the last, give me like the last 10 years, in the chat, and I'll look it up and see if I can get through it.
The last really good thing I watched was something called Suckers, which was done as play. Yeah, have you ever seen that?
No.
It was done for 5-year-olds, I think, and it made in Canada. And it, you know how like in the 90s, everybody had like a Garfield with little sucker cups stuck to the side of their window, like it was trapped in the car. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a car where in the back seat they have accumulated all these little toys and dolls and window sucker creatures. And when the car is in the garage and the door is shut and the lights are out, they all come to life and have adventures in the back window of the car. And so therefore it's called Suckers. But they're all 5-minute vignettes, and God, is it good. It's hysterical, and it's done without any dialogue. Just grunts and growls and the characters going through it. You have to see it to believe it.
I guess maybe the last thing I could think of is Primal.
What's Primal?
And I'm not it's Gendy Tartakovsky, the guy that did Samurai Jack, and a bunch of other stuff too. But Primal is essentially like, it's kind of dialogue-less, and that's the only thing I have against it, because I need some dialogue when I have things on in the background. I don't really have a lot of time to just sit there and... Yeah, but I kind of have a love-hate relationship with the show because it is kind of engrossing, and it makes me want to sit there and watch it. But I have too many things to do, so I can't just sit there and watch it. So it's nice, though. It's nice. It's got like a Conan the Barbarian kind of vibe to it. The dude pretty much rescues like this like baby Tyrannosaurus Rex sort of creature. Mm-hmm. Its mother gets killed in the first episode, and so he forms a bond with this creature, and now they're kind of like best friends on adventures, and they all got kinds of, it's this weird sort of prehistoric-y kind of vibe to it. So there's some really cool stuff with this series, but that's got to be, I don't know, 5 or so years old at this point. Well, but that's the last thing I could think of.
It sounds like if we're going to grab the, the older folk or the people that, I think fiction formats, going all the way back to Pulp Fiction, comic books, B movies, which were like an hour long. I think in order to be super popular, you have to grab people that don't have the time to really focus on it, like yourself. And you're saying, well, I need the dialogue to get into it. Maybe we need to go back to the style of old time radio.
Oh yeah, I dig that stuff. That's for
so
sure.
You can draw, you can go through paperwork, you can wash the dishes and whatever, and just have it on. And there may be some imagery that goes with it, some animation, but you can follow the story just through people talking. Like most of the time, if
I would enjoy that.
when I go on a stream, I'm usually like laying on my couch or something with my hair sticking on end and wearing my glasses, so I appear as this wonderful icon you see before you. But that's why, because I have my coffee in my hand, and a bag of potato chips, and my shirt's unbuttoned. I don't want to be on camera. But if you want to get into a good story, just listen to it. And this is what you hear. All these old shows that we're talking about, that's what they do.
Absolutely.
You can follow the story, whether it's, I think even like Batman animated, there's a lot of that.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of dialogue in there. There's moments absolutely where there aren't any, and it's kind of more a visual cue, but there's more than enough dialogue to follow the story.
A friend of mine brought up tonight, he's a little bit older than me, and he watched the old Filmation Supermans. And the reason that they got made, not the ones you're talking about from the 40s, which are awesome, which were designed, you paid a quarter and you sat in a theater and you watched those. But the 1960s ones, and what happened is the Superman radio show was on, and then the Superman television show came on, and then poor George Reeves got shot. So they needed something to keep Superman on the air, and they went to Filmation and they said, "Can you do this show?" And on the radio show, because there was no visuals, when Superman went to fly, he would always yell, I'm sure you know what the line is, up, and away. Okay. Yeah. And in fact, if you listen carefully, when he's Clark Kent and something happens, like the volcano explodes, he says this, "This looks like a job for Superman." And his voice drops
and
2
his
octaves.
voice changes, yeah.
Right. So he's turning into Superman. I get it now. Okay. So you can do it just as well with visuals, and it becomes more impactful. And it gets to the point where we can parody it, and it still works. Yep. Like you remember Underdog?
Yeah.
Look up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's a frog. A frog? No, it's little old me, Underdog. And we need some guys that are super distinctive. Like Wally Cox used to do the voice of Underdog. And you know that voice. I mean, I'm sure you watched the show, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, when Polly's in trouble, I am not slow. It's hip, 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 and away I go. Okay, too much time in front of a TV, I can do all the voices. But whether I'm good or bad, it's up to you. But we need, that's another thing that makes these characters stand out. And we still have Frank Welker. We still have a lot of guys who do voices today who are good.
Yeah. Well, even, hell, Thundercats, Transformers, Roll Out. It's all these different things.
Yeah, Joe. Yeah.
Yeah.
G.I. Joe. Yeah, do you remember a show called Tennessee Tuxedo?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
With the Penguin?
Yep.
You know who did the voices on there?
No, not off the top of my head, but I probably do.
It was Don Adams from Get Smart.
Okay, yep.
And it was another guy whose name I'm forgetting. I met him too, and he passed away. He played the walrus. But they would always go see Dr. Whoopi. And Dr. Whoopi would show them how to make things. And that way all the teachers that were advising the network would go, "Oh yeah, they're teaching the kids how to build a kite or something." And they go see Dr. Whoopi, and he'd go, "Well, let me pull out the 3-dimensional blackboard and I'll show you boys how to build a kite. Whoopee!" And that was Larry Storch from F Troop.
Oh, okay.
And Larry told me a story. I met him. I spoke with him a few times. And Larry said, what I was doing is I was friends with Frank Morgan from The Wizard of Oz. And Frank used to like to drink before he went on stage. And so I was doing drunk Frank Morgan, and they never caught me.
Oh, my God. That's funny.
So that's why that's right, Dr. Whoopi sounds like he's slugging vodka at 3 a.m. That he was Frank Morgan.
It's like Foster Brooks.
He's like Foster Brooks. You're gonna have to. Well, who in the audience is old enough to know? Well, maybe our audience, but Foster Brooks, or who's the guy that used to do the announcing for Hee Haw?
Oh,
he was another one that was always drunk.
Yeah.
But you can't have fun with that anymore.
Tip of my tongue.
I know.
But yeah. Seriously.
He ran for president too. He was the announcer on Laugh-In. Why can't I remember his name?
See, Iodine says Don Adams was the voice of the Penguin.
On what show? Where would he have been the voice of the Penguin? Because I think on Batman, Ted Knight was the voice of the Penguin. Larry Storch was the voice of the Joker. Not Don Adams.
Yeah, I guess it would depend which one, because I'm thinking, because there are multiple.
Yeah, if we're
right
talking
now,
early...
Right now, all I have in my head is the Filmation 70s Batman with Adam West.
The 60s Batman, the 70s
60s,
Batman, and the Scooby-Doos, Joker and Penguin were... on the one with Phineas J. Whoopi. Oh, yeah, Don Adams was the voice of the Penguin, Tennessee Tuxedo, sure.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. No, but yeah, because when they did a Batman show, it was almost the Penguin was almost always Ted Knight, as was the Scarecrow. Just saying, but yeah, it's a lost art, and I think it's because the companies don't have to do it right, which is unfortunate.
Absolutely. Well, man, Kevin, thank you so much for stopping by, man. This was a great conversation.
Thank you for having me on here. I love talking about old cartoons.
Yeah, no problem, man.
All right. Are you how late are you going? You keep.
I'm wrapping up right now. Yeah,
okay,
I went a little later than I wanted to, but it was a great conversation. So thank you, man.
All right. Well, have a good one, and hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Absolutely. Take it easy. Have a great weekend.
All right. Bye-bye.
But yeah, that went a little bit longer, but yeah, thank you guys so much. This was great tonight. Whew. We covered a lot of ground. So thank you guys if you've been here the whole 2 hours, almost 15 minutes. Much appreciated. And I'm going to have to, like I said before, I'm going to have to do an episode where I at least look at some of the Wizard magazines that I've got. And I'll have the overhead and we'll flip through them. I think that'll be fun. We can see how things have changed. But thank you guys so much. And I'll be back tomorrow night with a draw stream. About an hour or so. Just a couple characters. I might even just do... Yeah, I'll do a couple characters. I got a couple smaller cards to do. So I'll get that done tomorrow night. I'll be back on here at... we'll start at 9 o'clock. We'll do 9 o'clock Eastern tomorrow night. So I'll see you guys then for a Sunday night sketch stream, hopefully. And I hope that you guys will be here. So until then, everyone, hope you guys have a wonderful weekend if I don't see you. But hope you guys have a great night and an even better tomorrow. I'll see you guys soon. All the best to you. Take it easy.